Good morning, everyone. In the absence of our chairman until he gets on, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Uh, The Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force meeting for March 1st, 2021. We'd like to call our meeting to order, please. And as asked, Sharice, are we in compliance with FOIA?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are.
All right. I'd like to call the roll, please. We know LaVon is trying to get on. Ms. McVitie,
Present.
Mr. Theodore, Ms. Wright, Mr. Malik, Ms. Davis, Ms. Davis. No, she was here with us. Yours truly, I'm present. Ms. Green and Ms. Teresa White. Right. Teresa, I don't think do we have a quorum to move forward, or do we continue to get the approval of the agenda?
We don't have a quorum just yet. We did have one.
Yeah, some people fell off.
Okay, so we have 4 members.
Please.
We have 4 members.
Um,
Okay,
Hello?
yes, we have 5 members. We have a quorum.
You guys hear?
Mr. Malik, we did call your name. I don't remember you answering as being present, but we can see you. All right. We can see you present. And Mr. Stevens is still battling to try to get on. So let me move back over, Sharice.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. All right.
Hello?
Yes, LaVon, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
I'm sorry, I do apologize for I have issues.
All right. Well, in order to move us forward, we have an agenda before us. As I can see, it's a pretty short agenda. I'm going to try to follow this since it seems to be several pages.
I'm sorry, where are we now in the meeting?
We're down to the approval of the agenda. You would like to, I was trying to move us forward in your absence. If you would like for me to continue, or Brother Chairman, you can definitely take over from this point if you would like to. It seems like you're still having some
I can
technical
certainly try. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have some connection issues.
Reese.
Let's call the meeting to order.
We've done so. We've called the roll.
Right now, we're at the approval of the agenda. So right now, we're asking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion by Brother Malik to approve our agenda, and a second by Ms. McVitie to approve our agenda for today. Everyone available to vote? If you have the usual vote, please.
You'll need to go through the roll to approve it.
Call the roll for the vote. All right.
Approved.
Yeah. Do you have I'm sorry, hang on. Palmer, do you have
I have the agenda.
proceedings for our members? Do you have the list of our members?
Yes. Levon, we at the approval of the agenda. We're ready for the vote on the agenda approval. It's been motioned by Brother Malik and second by
Okay,
Mr.
so
Moody.
just,
So we're at the
we just need to go through and call the roll.
right. Ms. McVitie,
Yes.
Theodore, who we know is not here. Ms. Wright is not here. Do I need to, if we know they're absent, I don't need to call their names, do I?
No, you don't. Just
Okay.
call the ones who are here.
All right. Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Ms. Davis, I think I'm not going to strike her yet because she was on, so I'm assuming she having some technical difficulties. For the motion, we know Shawnee's not here, Teresa's not here, and our chairman is still trying to get on. I don't think I don't think he can hear us.
If you can hear me, I approve.
All right, we've carried the motion on our vote. The majority has the votes to accept our agenda for our meeting. Teresa, and approved now that we're down to the approval for the minutes from our February meeting for those who have them.
That's correct. You'll need to call for the motion to approve the minutes.
All right, everyone who has had the opportunity to read those minutes, I suppose, if you have read those, we need a motion to approve our minutes from our February 1, 2020.
So moved.
All right.
I move.
A second.
We have a motion from Ms. Piviti to accept our minutes from our February 1st meeting. We have a second by Mr. Malik on that. I'll call the roll. Ms. McVitie,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Ms. Davis still not on with us. Yes for the motion. Mr. Stevens for the motion to accept the minutes.
I approve.
All right. All right. Next item on our agenda is comments from citizens. Ms. DeBose.
Yes, public comments concerning agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the town's open town hall portal. These comments were provided to the committee for review and made a part of the official record. In addition to commenting on the portal, citizens were provided with option to sign up for public comment participation by phone during the meeting. The open town hall, town portal, and sign it for the public comment period both closed at noon on Friday, February 26, 2021. There was one request from a citizen to participate by phone regarding item 7A. And so next you'll need to go, we're doing the discussion items. I don't know if you need to do an intro, but I'm happy to go ahead and jump in for the review of progress and next steps for the Historic Neighborhoods Overlay District. So I'll go ahead and get started with that.
You would please. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so on Thursday, February 26th, PPC met and made a recommendation to move family compound and family subdivision applications with reductions to buffer setbacks and access width from the proposed HNPO district to town council for first read on March 16th. It's understandable that there's some disappointment that the amendments have not all moved forward right now, but the rest of the proposed amendments will be reviewed and town council will give staff a direction in terms of how to move forward with the rest of those amendments. The good news about family compound and family subdivision is that once it passes, these applications will be able to be something that native island landowners can take advantage of immediately. Also, it's important to encourage the people who live within the historic neighborhoods to fill out the survey that is on Open Town Hall so we can get a good representation on which proposed amendments are most important. And I understand that they're all important, but we still want the community's voices heard if this is to be considered. And I get that this is all have been said before, but as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So this needs to be said as many times as possible. So please encourage people to fill out that survey. So right now, what you can do is you can open up to take public comments, and we have someone waiting on the phone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bowles. We're now open for public comment, and if we have someone on the line, if you would now go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Simmons. This is Phil Smith, your neighbor. Good morning to everybody there, Levon and the rest of the committee. I'm the president of Oak Marsh Property Owners Association. We joined Mr. Simmons' property, 584 Spanish Wells Road, and are fully in favor of this committee, what it does, and what it's looking to do if it is to preserve Gullah heritage going forward. We participated in that, in cleaning up graveyards, participated in Gullah festivals, helped both graveyards, Mr. Simmons' graveyard when he wasn't present to help his parents, and the other graveyard on the other side, the community vault. We cleaned up after Matthew and without any town assistance and worked very diligently for that. So we're in favor of this, but we want it to be right. We also look at the case studies that you guys are looking at, and you're taking one side view of a case study, and Mr. Simmons' case study, which he clearly broke the law. He's been convicted 4 times of breaking the law and has been fined for that. He never had a trucking business there until the past 2 years. As much as he would like to say that was going on there, it didn't happen. And he uses the analogy, if you move next to a pig farmer, you have to accept the pigs. Well, we moved into a tranquil neighborhood. We're good friends with his parents, and I've been good friends with Mr. Simmons. I actually went to court for him, filled out affidavits, and still admire Mr. Simmons and his business and what he's accomplished with his trucking business. It's a great business, but it never operated next to our neighborhood at Spanish Wells Road in Oak Marsh until the last 2 years. So any contrivance to any contriving to say it did not. So if you look at that as a case study, as Levon has said to me multiple times, there's 3 sides to every story. You have to look at all sides and bring everybody in to look at it. And we can prove through multiple videos how disruptive that trucking business has been over the last 2 years, which is all the time it's been in operation. So going forward, we would like to see the Gullah preservation go forward. We'd like to see people be able to keep their property, and we have solutions for that, as in tax bases and the town buying back property and putting it in Gullah Heritage Trust and paying full price for it. But if we give in to construction and development, where you've said multiple times it's all about the money and the economic form, then that's just going to destroy the Gullah heritage here, and it's going to disappear. And we are very much against that. We're very much against mass development, changing the LMOs to less stringent that they are, which are already ridiculously bad. So that's our belief. That's from 32 homeowners at Oak Marsh Property Owners Association. Thank you.
Sharice, this is not a forum for me to have to defend myself. I'm a part of this task force for the betterment of the Gullah community. And I'd like to clear up one thing Mr. Smith said, that he and whomever was there for my parents when I was not. That's a bold-faced lie in the public. Mr. Smith doesn't have to talk about my family to justify his means. So I just want to, obviously I need to clear that up. If they want to compare stuff, then go ahead. But, you know, whatever I went through with the town, I'm glad to share that as a matter of the issues that happen in our community, and whatever convictions I have, that's between me and whomever. And for Mr. Smith to come up and smear me or even my family to defend his position, to me is absolutely appalling. Mr. Smith
Excuse
moved.
me, Mr. Simmons, I don't mean to interrupt.
I understand.
No,
I,
it's just that we don't usually comment on the phone.
I understand.
We let them say their piece and then we go on with the discussion for, so we need to go ahead with the discussion
Yes.
for, among.
Yes, ma'am. Not a problem at all. Not a problem.
Sorry.
Anyone else with a public comment?
All the public comments right now. So what you will do is we'll call the discussion order, and you have time to do the talk. And I'm happy to call the discussion order if you want me to go ahead and do that.
I mean, if we're finished, if everyone is finished in that on the discussion items, then we can move on.
No, you have to discuss. So starting with you, if you have
Yeah.
something you want to say about with moving the amendments forward.
Sharice, Palmer and Sharice, can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Want to pick it up from here? That's fine.
I hope that my connection is stable now. And again, I do apologize for the technical difficulties this morning. So we will try to bring this meeting back into line and focus on the agenda. As Dr. DeBose says, we are allow the public to have their comments and then we will move on. So we are now at the point of the discussion order. And Sharice, I'm guessing this is a discussion order on the item number 7, right? The review progress and next steps for the historic overlay district. And
Yes,
that's what we're discussing right now, right?
that is what we're discussing now. Yes.
Okay, well, let's try to keep our focus here. I've already apologized for my technical difficulties, but I did want to say in my very opening comments, if I had the opportunity, that we are still mourning the loss of Scott Liggett, and I wanted to acknowledge the work that he did in assisting this task force and the staff, and our thoughts and our prayers continue to be with Scott and his family. We will certainly miss him and his presence and the work and what he's meant to this town and this community. The historic overlay district and LMO amendments, I believe you said in the beginning, Sharice, that we have this now is still at the public planning committee level. Is that correct?
Right now, it has gone, the family compound, family subdivision are going forward to town council. The rest of the amendments have not moved forward yet, but we're moving forward with family compound and family subdivision for first reading at town council on March 16th.
Okay. We are anxiously looking forward to what again, it's at the public planning committee level of the town council. So we're looking forward to what they will do with that. I do understand that they are looking at that and had it in on their desks for a few weeks now. Hopefully they have been able to do some work with staff. And Sharice, I don't know if you can give us any more information about exactly what it is they're looking at and what their concerns might be.
What they want to do, their town council will give us direction as to how to approach the rest of the amendments. But what they're looking at now is what is giving them, they want more consideration with is the density issue and the home occupation, which we're already looking at because of the survey on town on open town hall, trying to determine which noxious disturbances would be best tolerated. So again, if there is a way for you to encourage people in the historic neighborhoods to fill out that survey, that would help towards moving the rest of those amendments forward. There's also a density question on there as well as the buffers and setbacks question. So if those are those important issues to you, I need the task force help to get the word out there that there is a survey in Open Town Hall that people need to fill out.
Okay. A couple things here. I actually took that survey, and I'm not sure that it went through because I don't know what happened at the end. And again, I'm not the best with technology. So I hope that, do you know how many people fill out the survey to this point?
What at last checked, it was 8 people, and I need to check it again. The numbers could have gone up since then, but when we discussed it at PPC level, it was 8.
All right. And the other thing that I recall at this task force level was that we had taken the discussion about home occupation out of there. When did this get back into the discussion with the town council?
It was taken out at task force level, you were correct. But the discussions were continued at PPC level. There was even a discussion about renaming it to something that is more in line with Native Islanders working and living on the property, and those discussions will continue further. There's not a definite it's going to be put back in, but yes, you are correct. It was removed at task force level. Again, town council will be giving us direction as to how to proceed with the rest of the amendments.
I think it's important that when these developments happen, that the task force is made aware, since we're the ones who initiated these conversations and brought these issues forward. So if there's some changes or if there's something that's changed in those discussions, the task force needs to be made aware of that. The other thing I want to know is, how are we going to address density increase?
Again, this is a direction we're still looking for. Staff will be reviewing those again. And as I get that information, I will supply those to you. At PPC level, we've always tried to make the task force aware that these conversations are coming up at PPC level. So again, the other discussions in terms of the amendments, those will be in discussion at town council. It's hard to tell you right now what direction is going to head before we have that first reading, before we have further discussions. But as they develop, we will be in contact. Staff will contact task force and let them know that these discussions are happening and in which form.
Okay, at the first of the year, I encouraged us to work a little bit closer with the task force, and certainly me as the chairman in particular. So what I'd appreciate it if we could just keep that line of communication open and make it a little tighter and closer. We don't have to make a full report every time, but I do know that there are developments that happen and that we may be able to be of some assistance in helping to move those things forward a little smoother. And again, I'm asking these questions because I'm sure there must be some work that's going on with the staff and even for the planning, public planning committee. And I would just ask that you can, maybe share some things to give this task force a little insight on some of the work that we've initiated. And again, how the increase in density, I don't want to assume, but I think that there certainly has been some directions given about ideas about how we increase the density and some of the challenges that it may present, and also, again, some of the successes. The task force does not just exist to, work in opposition with staff or to criticize, but as you said with the survey, we want to be advocates in the community so we can help people to understand the process and also to be good advocates for getting these changes and amendments approved. Is there anything else you can tell us about that increase in density?
There is nothing that I can tell you about that at this time because those discussions have not occurred yet. But as we meet regularly, we just adopted a 2021 schedule. You'll be brought up to speed with the amendments as they move forward.
I understand the meeting schedule, talk about in between the meetings as well, so I would appreciate that. Okay, those are
Mr.
my,
Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
um, where is this survey located on the website? I mean, if only 8 people have taken the survey. I have not. I don't believe I've taken the survey, and I can't find it.
Yeah, it was, I received it in an email. Sharice, can you tell us how that was shared?
Yes, it was shared with the task force as it was made a couple of weeks ago via link. I am happy to resend that link to you at the conclusion of the meeting.
But here's
So
my
was it,
concern. It seems to me that if we want a lot of people to sign the survey, it should be on the website and it should be easily found. Now, I have just scoured the website and I can't find it. So, it seems even with all of us, if we all sent emails out to people, we wouldn't necessarily get to that volume that we're looking for to be meaningful.
Ms. McVitie, it's on the open town hall portal, usually where you go and you fill out your.
Yes, I see that. And
Mr. Chairman, are we open for comment?
okay, let me, hang on just a second, guys. Let me go back to order, please. We will, when we proceed, we will have a discussion, but we will do it just like we call the roll. So when I get to you, you can have your questions or comments then.
thank you.
Yes.
I entertain that her point. We want to make sure that we have a good way of getting that out to the public. I don't know if the public is going to go to the town hall portal, but if that is something we really want some good support and information with, we got to find a better way to getting it out to the public and to the community. That communication I received, Sharice, was it just sent to the task force?
No, it was not. It was sent to several people, asked to share, as well as it was sent to the task force. It was asked to share the link. And again, I'm happy to resend that.
Mr.
I see that.
Stevens,
Just one second, Ms. McVitie. I appreciate that, Sharice.
the only thing I could find is the open town hall is for
On the
people
task force.
to make their
Be a better way.
comments.
Okay, let me go ahead and yield to Ms. McVitie. I'll let you have your questions.
Okay, my question is, I have looked at the town site. You said it should be on the open town hall section.
That's correct.
Yes.
Open Town hall portal, yes. You'll have to
Yes,
scroll.
but there, I don't see a, okay. It's kind of hard to find. And people would have to know that it was there to take the survey.
Sure. And I can, again, send a direct link to you. And
No, that's all right. I mean, I see where it is.
if you have people that you would like to share that with, it would be easier via that direct link. So I can
Okay.
send that to you and you can send it to whomever you feel needs to fill it out.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Malik,
I don't
are
have
you
any
still
comments at the time.
online?
I'm here. I don't have any comments at the moment.
Okay. Uh, okay, Ms.
Is it Chairman having technical difficulties again? Because if so, I'm happy to take over the roll call.
Don't see, I'm sorry, did we get, Mr. Malik, you said you had no comments at this time?
Did say no comments.
I don't think
Ms.
Mr. Malik
Davis?
can hear us.
Ms. Martha Davis?
Hi. My only question is for those folks that may not be tech savvy or getting onto the link to do this survey, is there another way that they can do it?
Yeah.
It's just available via that link right now, but we're happy to help anybody try to get on if they need to be able to get on. So that is something that we could take a look at, try to figure out alternatives for people who are not tech savvy.
Okay.
Is there technical, Mr. Chairman, are you having technical issues again? Is he having technical issues?
I'm not sure where we are. I see people getting frozen off and on.
Mr. Chairman, it's you.
Mr. Simmons, do
I
you
believe we're
have any
down
comments?
to Mr. Simmons, yes.
Yes, I have a couple. My first comment or concern is with the survey itself. And maybe I missed the rationale behind the survey as it pertains to density is what I thought it said. And I think to put a survey out to the public to try to attempt to get a understanding of what the public view is of density, I think we're sending a task to the public who may be less informed as the task force was down through the years and sending this information to public policy or to those who are in charge with carrying this information out. And to come back at this point to get a public survey as to density and everything else to me seems like almost an undermining of a lot of work. I don't see, unless I miss the rationale behind the survey, I think it's a very, very bad move to come back out after the task force has submitted all the work in reference to this. It seems to me just another step to how you push a project back. Why couldn't the information after all these years be used to carry forth what we have already surveyed the public? That information came from many hours of investigation with the public. And now to go back, what are you going back for? And like I said, maybe I missed it, but I think it's clear that I want to make that point of why are we even going back with a survey in reference to density if I understand. I just think that's a way to derail something of importance. And I think to go back, that is simply revisiting something that has had hours of time spent. I think it's a bad move to go back and to use a survey now to make some decision on what's already been done. Second, if a home occupancy is put on the agenda, or is put on back to public policy as it affects the Gullah and historic neighborhoods, then that's a discussion that needs to come out of just a private discussion, and definitely have people from the neighborhoods to have input. I think to decide in a meeting what's best overall with that discussion for what's good for home occupancy, if it's going to be named and renamed and redefined, then, people who are directly affected, need to be a part of that discussion. I think it's, I just see a lot going on with this. We have come a lot of steps forward. And the way I see this, it's some steps being taken backwards, in my opinion, to move what we have worked so very hard for to move forward. I think the survey, and I think as you say this, the home occupancy was taken off and now put back, and it's okay if it's going to be put back. But I think to put it back and then that comes through this task force after all the work we've done is really not a very good move, in my opinion. Those are the two comments I'd like to make.
Sure, thank you. The survey was geared towards people who live in the historic neighborhoods district. So the first question would be, do you live in the district, yes or no? And the hope was to gear it towards people who it most affected, like those who live on those native island properties, to gauge what it is that they really most want to see in the overlay district, which elements are the most important. So it was certainly not the intent to undermine the work of the task force. It was hard work, dedicated work. It is staff and the task force, we would like to work together to try to get the rest of the amendments moved forward. So to get the grassroots backing was the thought behind that, particularly those that own property, those particular properties, and make sure that they're focused toward the right people. So again, it's not the intent to undermine your hard work, but it is to get some voices behind, more voices behind the rest of the amendments that you want to move forward. And that was the intent there.
Sharif, I don't see that. I mean, the question had already been answered. The question had been answered as to what the community, what the native, what the historic communities wanted. We answered those questions, and that's why we sent up a document that answered those questions. So to go back in any form at all, to me, is just a step backward. That's just what it is. Why would you do that? I mean, I think that's a total undermine of a process that took years to get to a point, and to go back in any shape or form, to me, is not the way to do it. That's just not good, period. Whatever the intent, if your intent was to do that, I see it as an intentional way to hold off on moving forward.
No, sir, we don't want to hold off on moving forward. We want to move forward.
Well, then take the information that was given and move it forward. That information was plenty good enough as we surveyed the historic neighborhoods, as we surveyed the families and everybody else. That wasn't done by just us sitting and saying, oh, this sounds good, let's send it in. No, that was done with surveys, community meetings, and everything else that we thought was more than sufficient to move the items forward. And I repeat once again, to go back in any shape or form, to me, is moving this project backward. It's enough information at hand that dealt with enough of the issues, because everybody knew that even what we brought forward wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. Everyone agreed unanimously to move forward, from the communities, in the communities, and everywhere. So I'm missing, once again, like I said, the rationale for needing to have to go back. You had more than enough information about densities in the areas everywhere that everyone agreed would be sufficient at this time to move forward. It gave us enough of what we wanted. Not all, not 100%, but it was surely enough to move this thing forward, and to go back, to me, is just not good. Not good at all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons.
You're welcome.
Okay. If you can, it's still very intermittent with my connection. I do with Mr. Simmons. There are things that developments or changes that take place and what our agenda is from the task force. We need to be made aware of that. And if there's some thought process or some ideas going forward, again, I think we as a task force would appreciate being the ones to participate in whether this is a good idea or not. I don't think that that campaign is successful so far. You're certainly not going to get a good understanding from what the community wants and needs from 8 people. There has to be a better way. As Mr. Simmons says, we spent the last 3+ years engaging the community, identifying those needs, and looking at what the challenges are. What we're looking to do now is to deal with the challenges. I think that most of us on this task force and even in this community already knows what we're trying to accomplish here. The challenge is how do we make that work for the total community and some of the things that happen with people who are not native islanders or maybe do not live in those areas. That's where the real issues are. And that's the heavy lifting I think we're looking for town council and staff to do, not to keep going back and asking the same question that we've asked for the last 30, 40, or 50 years. So again, I echo Mr. Simmons' comments, and I do find that to be a little insulting as far as the work that we do here at the task force level. If that home occupation piece is going to hinder moving the other pieces forward, then it definitely should be reconsidered. And if there's some work that needs to be done with that particular piece, then we as a task force in the community do need to be involved and engaged. So again, I just encourage staff, Sharice, as you move forward to be as open with our communication and also to encourage some input. And I think you'll get better support from this task force and therefore better support from the community. I don't know whose decision that was to include the home occupation piece into the historic overlay district discussion, but when it left this task force, home occupation was not in there. And if there are other pieces that need to be considered to move forward, I think that we as a task force have identified some of the other projects that are just as important. As you said, all of them are important, but there are certainly other pieces that we need to try to identify and move forward. I'll give you one quick example in my discussions with the community and in particular, Dr. Campbell and other people throughout Beaufort County who are helpful and interested in helping to define what a native islander is or native island property so that we can guard against unscrupulous developers and things like that. Dr. Campbell always refers us back to the Gullah Geechee Corridor, which is the organization that was established up and down the southeast coast throughout the islands. And this group would be very helpful to the discussions that we're having now because that is a corridor that has been identified and recognized by the federal government. I think that there's some ways that we can take advantage of that even at this local level. So again, I think we can use some of the resources that we have around us and before us, and if we continue to engage the community, we'll be able to work better together and get a little more positive progress made. All right, those are my comments. I don't know if you need to respond to that, Sharice, but I'll give you a moment if you'd like.
thank you for what you said, and that is something we will take a closer look at. I do think Mr. Malik has a comment though, and he wasn't able to speak earlier.
Okay.
Yes, I just want to go on record to say that I support what Palmer has mentioned about, not moving things forward as they were presented. I support his statement both in letter and spirit. Just want to let that be a part of my comment. I agree. There's just been so much work, so many recommendations that came from the community through the consultant, shifting to documents going all the way back to 1985, RUDAT studies, recommendations are being put forth, and for them to not go forward now, again, Mr. Simmons couldn't have said it any better. So I support his statements 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. I don't know if we need a second round of comments. Anybody else have a question or comment on this particular item? Ms. McVitie, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. I really don't see the purpose of this survey in light of everything that we've discussed. I think it kind of muddies the water, and it seems to me to represent just a kind of a justification for the rest of the community, trying to bring some weight to the fact that we've proposed these changes. So, and the fact that it can't even get out to people, and if I had a hard time finding it, I think, and I'm pretty good with technology. I just think it's the wrong thing at this particular time. If we need to make justifications for why we're doing things, we know what the purposes are. We know why we've changed boundaries. We know why we've changed setbacks. We know why we've changed the density. So when people question density, the reality is that those densities are minuscule. They're not huge increments. So I think we've already made the case, and we just need the support from the town in advancing that case. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. McVitie. Anyone else have a question or comment? Therese, I think you've gotten enough input from this committee, and hopefully you will take that and continue your work with staff. And again, we're looking forward to having good communication and certainly trying to support the work that you and staff are doing. So I want you to be encouraged, but at the same time, I don't want us to get bogged down and get frustrated like we have so many times before in so many efforts over the years. So I hope that you will take all of that to heart. I do see that Ms. White has joined us, and I'm glad that she was able to get on. Before I move to the next item, I just wanted to ask her if she had any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I guess in reference to what we're talking about and the input from the task force, and I know you have offered to be available for any discussions that might be had. I definitely too would like to offer my availability for whatever it's worth, from the task force and from a 64-year resident of Hilton Head Island, as we talk about what happens in the historic communities. I think if I or otherwise are left out of those discussions, we sometimes are going to end up right back where we are today, trying to take, we take 10 steps forward and 20 backward. I mean, to me, it's that serious. So for whatever that value is to this discussion, I'd like to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. I think that your voice would be important, especially as you say, as not just a 64-year island resident, but because you are a part of the Native Island families here and a very strong part of it. Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments at this point? I'd like to go ahead and move to the next item, which is case studies. And this is relevant to some of the things we just were talking about. So, Dr. DeBose, I will let you make your presentation.
Okay, just give me a moment, share my screen. So, case studies, I know that's something that you've been asking for, and I want to thank you for bearing with us as we research the format that protects owner anonymity. And so, first I want to discuss what case studies are, and that's closely observing specific challenges. And in this case, the challenges that are being observed are those of Native Islanders face when using the LMO as it's currently written. So particular development standards challenges for Native Islanders as case studies will be supplied to you, and they will be using the following format. So it will begin with the context or introduction, which are, of course, the historical communities of Hilton and Island, and more specifically, Native Islander property owners. The next section will tackle challenges. What are the actual development standards challenges? And in this case, I'm going to talk about 5 challenges that are being looked at today. There are definitely more challenges, so those will continue to be identified. The next section talks about solutions. Some of these issues could be resolved with the family compound and family subdivision applications, which are moving forward to Town Council, and the proposed HNPO district amendments, which we will be in discussions about moving the rest of those amendments forward as well. So it is important to understand that these solutions may not apply to every property or resolve every issue, as there are different circumstances that impact the outcome of the ability to be able to build on the property at the same rate. So at this point, you would still need the confirmation from the Town of Hilton Head Community Development Department as to the best course for resolution. The next section would talk about benefits, how this would benefit the property owner, and which could work towards preserving Native Islander population on Hilton Head. So we want to be able to preserve these properties. So the benefits would be discussed in that section as to how these actually work. And it concludes with the fact that the results, because they have not been applied yet, they'll be recorded once the application amendments are in place and people begin to utilize them. Okay, and then I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay. So here there are 5 case studies being identified. So the first one is the property not having enough allowable density as required by the zoning district to build an additional home. We've seen 4 of these cases. There are definitely more, but these are the ones that have come across my desk. So I say at least 4 cases that do not have enough allowable density to build an additional home. This could be resolved with the proposed upzoning for the RM4 properties that currently allows 4 units per acre to properties that are 6 units per acre of the RM6 district. The second one, it talks about the property owner is building an additional home on a single parcel or adjacent parcels that uses the same access easement, and it's necessary to upgrade to a 40-foot right-of-way. More than 1 home can be built on the family compound as density allows and can be accessed with a 20-foot easement. And for subdivided properties that uses the same access easement, if it's 5 lots or less, the minimum easement width is 20 feet. For 6 or more, the right-of-way width is decreased to 30. So those are the proposed changes for the family compound and family subdivision, which could alleviate these at least 5 cases that are being presented before us. And there, again, there could be more. The third, there are at least 4 cases of property owners who want to subdivide the land to build an additional home or save for future generations. So the placement of an additional home on the property requires a subdivision application where a 40-foot right-of-way and infrastructure must be put in place first. And the proposed family subdivision is proposed to allow family members to subdivide with reduced buffers and setbacks and a 20-foot easement or 30-foot right-of-way. And the infrastructure can be built as the home is being constructed. So this could possibly go towards alleviating that issue. The fourth one, we have seen about 3 of these cases, at least 3, there could be more out there, where the access easement needs to be improved or relocated or widened to meet the 20-foot minimum. 20 feet is for the purpose of your emergency vehicles being able to fit. But what the proposed reduced buffers and setbacks would do may impact how far the easement actually needs to be relocated. So with the reduced buffers and setbacks, it could go ways towards trying to alleviate that problem. And the final one is the home occupation, those who desire to live and work on the property that they own. Again, that's being revisited. It might not be named that. This was actually discussed at the PPC level. And again, going back to earlier discussions, this doesn't have any, this was, yes, taken out at the task force level, but there are discussions about whether or not that piece will move forward. But there is at least a case of that happening here with the home occupation. There could be more out there where people want to live and work on the property they own. So there are more cases that need to be observed, and there are a higher number of property owners who are working with the issues than previously mentioned, and staff will continue to keep the cases updated and therefore keep you updated. And also staff can use your help in identifying other common issues that have not been mentioned, and if there are more issues that are mentioned here. Not giving us specific names, but encouraging us to contact us as well, encouraging them to contact us as well. And that's what I have for that. If you want to go through the role and have the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McVitie.
I guess all I can think is that when we talked about case studies, I think we were looking at something broader, but it seems to me the town has already, if these people have identified their concerns, then we do know that there are people out there who have identified with the overlay district, and that I'm assuming the overlay district would satisfy these needs. So.
Sharice, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, when doing the overlay district with your input with the report, these are definitely thought about as these issues were brought forward. So hopefully that these would resolve some of the issues that have come across our desk, some of the issues that you've seen, and it'll help shape what this is going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Malik.
Yes, thank you. My question would be, how far back did we go into history for these case studies?
This is a good question. Some people have been grappling for several years with trying to resolve some of these issues. I don't have specific dates, but I do know that these are not issues that just cropped up yesterday, but these are questions that have been several years in the making. And again, these are not all of the people that have actually crossed into town hall. This is just the beginning and just an example of the kind of things that we've seen. And as we get more of them, that list will continue to be updated.
And I guess the reason why I asked that question is, well, I guess my second question would be, not my question, but my statement would be, I remember having a conversation with one of the staff members. I believe her name was Nicole. Can't think of her last name, but she indicated that that the department that she works in, she has good insight as to what the problems are and what kind of adjustments need to be made because she sees it on a daily basis. But because the LMO was written a certain way that didn't support being flexible, she couldn't do anything beyond what was written in the book. But she could provide, a decent amount of case history with suggestions as to how to resolve it because of what she's been exposed to. So I guess my question would be, again, how much have we delved into that history that she's contained of having been an employee there for some time?
In terms of identifying some of the cases, yes, these are cases that Ms. Dixon is aware of. I've worked with her on a couple of them, and these are issues that some owners have been grappling with for several years. So yes, her insight is certainly put into this.
Okay, now I guess the further question might be, it appears as if the most of these case studies that you presented was strictly centered around the family subdivision and the family compound. Has there been any effort into presenting case studies or finding case studies that deal with the other questions that are in our documents?
Yes, sir. There's one where several are worrying about in terms of density, being able to add one more home. There's also something where the reduced buffers and setbacks can help place an access easement. So it's not just the family compound, family subdivision, but it is also the issues that the task force has helped put together in terms of trying to create an overlay district.
Okay. Now, maybe I'll ask one more question, and that would be, has there been a real recent case of that was added to your study here? Let's say within the last 6 months.
There's no way of telling how recent the cases are. I mean, they've come to me recently, but I can't tell you how long they've been working with the issue. But yes, these are cases that have brought to my attention in the last few months, but I don't know how long the owner has been actually grappling with those issues.
Okay, so then, again, you are not aware of anybody having come in to town or made an application within the last 6 months that could be used as a case study.
No, that's not what I said. I said that I have seen people in the last 6 months that have these issues. but I don't know how long they've been contending with the issue. So they could have wanted to subdivide their property for years, but I only saw them in the last couple of months. So it would be a recent case, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a recent issue that's come up. And it doesn't and it could be an issue that just come up, but yes, I have seen people in the last 6 months that have been grappling with these issues. Yes.
And some of those cases are in your model that you presented today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Martha Davis.
Okay, I have one question. Now, any of these cases, do they overlap? If any of them have multiple issues?
That's a good question. And yes, there are cases that do overlap. That it could be a subdivision issue with trying to upgrade at a right-of-way. Yes, they do overlap.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Simmons.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. I guess for obviously the presentation clearly takes care of a lot of or some density issues as we had previously discussed. And I mean, it shows that that being one of the major issues, we changed from 4 to 6 on some of those. However, those densities changed to allow families to do to subdivide and to be able to make more use and better use of their properties. So we see clearly that some of that, as it came out as major concerns, definitely have adequate answers given the overlay district as it's proposed. Also, I have a question about easements versus right-of-ways when you come into these properties. Who will own, is there an ownership issue between easements and right-of-ways? I found a lot of time that when you have easements, it's just a matter of, that's access into the property. Right-of-ways usually come with some degree of ownership. Who owns those? And the information here has passed. I heard somewhere, and I stand to be corrected, that even though we pass these in form, they still have to, obviously we intend that they would still be in compliance or that they would make an effective change to the LMO so that you don't necessarily have to say, yes, you can do this and then go get another approval. I mean, either you can do this or you can't. So I want to make sure that this is going to land where it's going to be not a 10-step process. That once we make these changes, there's not going to be 10 other steps after you do this to say, yes, you can get approval. If you follow my line of concern here, I mean, it's going to be very defeatist if we get this approved and then we have to go back to a planning body to say this, that, and other, yes or no. So, I mean, if this is approved, I mean, is it a done deal as our intentions from the task force was that, we make these changes so that we don't have all of the hurdles. And those are my comments.
Yes, sir. To answer your easement and right-of-way issues, easements are a little bit easier because you don't need that permission to be able to create the easement. The fortunate thing about it is that in some cases, the easement is 20 feet, but when you're talking about a right-of-way, depending on where it goes, you do need those permissions if you're crossing into somebody else's property. Now, if you do a family compound, family subdivision, you're all agreeing to do that in the first place. So perhaps those issues will not arise if you have to upgrade to a 30-foot right-of-way, which is the good news as well, because you're not doing the 40-foot right-of-way, you're doing only a 30-foot right-of-way. So the expense is not there that it was with how it's currently written. But yes, I do understand the challenges that come between doing an easement and doing a right-of-way. And the easement doesn't require as much in terms of permissions.
Right, which I think you sort of touched on on I guess part of my point. I mean, what would make the difference in having to have a right of way versus an easement? And because if an easement will suffice versus a right of way, then why is a right of way becoming a requirement?
Okay, so if you're doing a family subdivision, you only will need the easement if you're doing the five or less lots. Now, if you go to a 6-lot, you still would have to do your 30-foot right-of-way. And if it's a family subdivision, you already have those permissions. So it wouldn't be just as an arduous task as if you were just crossing into somebody else's area and you have to get permission from them. So if you kept it 5 and under lots, you would only need to supply it with the easement.
So, I mean, do I understand you saying that if you have more than 5 lots, then it needs to go to a 30-foot roadway that's then described as an easement, I mean, a right-of-way versus easement?
That's correct, and it's 30 feet rather than the 40-foot it once was proposed.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably neither here nor there, but okay. I guess as a matter of clarification, I hear you. I'm thinking why go 30 to 20 will do in a community, but
Now that's a good question as well. You need the 30-foot right of way because you have to put the infrastructure in once you have more cars that need to use that. And so the right of way carries the infrastructure. So you do need at least the 30-foot there.
well, I mean, then that goes to my next question then. How much more infrastructure you put in if you're going from 5 per se to 6? I mean, it's not going to change what you have. When I have infrastructure, I believe I hear utilities. I hear that which is underground for the most part. And to run another 40 feet of pipe and to make a lot, it's my only question. That's all. I mean, it's the point of where 20 will do why you need 30.
I understand it gets confusing, it's frustrating, but with the family subdivision, the good news is you don't have to place it all at once, and it doesn't only fall to one person to place it. And the more stress you place on those utilities, the more you need the upgrade. So that would be why you need the 30-foot. You need to have the room to put that infrastructure there.
And Mr. Chairman, and if I may, this is Terry Lewis. May I add something to this?
Okay, thank you. Please, Terry.
Sure. So I want to address a couple of issues that Mr. Simmons brought up. So one, related to the right-of-way versus easement. So we discussed this both at the task force, the LMO committee level, and the planning commission level with our engineering staff as part of that discussion as well. Both as part of what was being proposed with the family compound and family subdivision, and then also the dirt road paving amendments that were just adopted a couple of months ago. So we talked about the need for the right-of-way when you get over 5. And I know when you talk about maybe just adding a 6th lot or a 7th lot, it seems like it may be unnecessary, but we're looking further than that potentially, 10, 12 more lots than that. And like Cherie says, while previously or right now under the current LMO, when you are developing a subdivision, you have to put all of that infrastructure in at once. So we know, we know that it's all taken care of. And in this new scenario, you won't have to. You'll only build to the point of development. So you'll only put it in what you need. But yes, based on conversations with our engineering staff during those other discussions, like I said, they were in. We had them present at various meetings. It was their belief that a 30-foot right-of-way was the minimum that they needed to make sure that all infrastructure could be accommodated. And then the one other thing I just wanted to touch on, you had asked about hoping that you didn't have to, that families didn't have to go through a lot of hurdles once, let's say like family compound and family subdivision are adopted, that they wouldn't have to go back to, say, the BZA or the Planning Commission. And the way the amendments are drafted, that's exactly the case. It's just a staff level approval, so there would be no need to go to Planning Commission or Board of Zoning Appeals for anything. We've also kept in the language about expediting these types of permits, so family compounds and family subdivisions would be expedited both at initial submittal and if any resubmittals were needed. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Thank you, Terry. Palmer, does that help you?
Well, obviously, if you put it in now or later, it doesn't change whether it's 20 or 30 feet. I understand that. And if, I am not an engineer, so if engineers feel for some reason, that 30 feet is best, I would still ask that if 20 will do, why you need 30? When you put it in, sure, that saves on initial investment, but I don't think if we are talking about this as an overlay, unless there's all of a sudden going to be some creation of more land, the likelihood of anything over 7, how many acres it would take to build something up to 10 units. I don't believe there's a lot of acreages or property of that size to accommodate anything over, let's just say for a good number, 10 units. I don't see where a development of that size is going to take place in our community anytime soon, unless there's just a massive change of folks being pushed away. But nonetheless, if that's the answer to why 30 works over 20, I guess maybe we're stuck with that. But I'm happy to hear that some of those additional hurdles will be eliminated once we approve, because those have been the hurdles that continue to move the goalposts back as we move toward development. It's always you do one thing and there's something else. So in that light of the process and the progress, then I would think that we would be making some.
Okay. Thank you, Palmer.
You're welcome.
I thought that Ms. White was on the line. I think she was on briefly, and I don't see her on here now. Teresa White, if you are, you can speak up if you have a question or a comment. And my observations and my comments are related to discussions that have already been made. I believe when Mr. Malik was asking questions, I was involved in some of those discussions and meetings with Nicole Dixon and others from the staff. It was in relation to whether or not we needed to go to phase 2 of the plan that we had when we had the consultant. And the challenge or the question at that time was if we needed to bring in another entity from outside the town to help with some of these challenges in navigating, mostly through legal. There was another attorney or law firm that could help us navigate some of these LMO amendments. That's when the observation was made that, hey, staff knows what the issues are. The case are walking into their offices, so they know what the issues are. The challenge is that they're stuck abiding by what's in the LMO. In my mind, that's where we are today, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess maybe that's still a good question to ask. If staff needs some additional resources and help, we've certainly asked the question about what this task force has available to it as far as financial resources, if we need to hire other consultants or someone else to come in and help with this. At that time, I believe Ms. Dixon said that, that the staff was fully capable of working on these case studies because, again, they knew exactly what they were, and they could handle them because they were familiar with the challenges. The other question that I have is that I think that some of us know that there are many more case studies out there in the different categories. We've dealt with them one way or another. Either people have come to us or we've been a part of them actively ourselves. I know for a fact that the home occupation is something that keeps coming up at least once, maybe 2 or 3 times in every year that goes by. So I do have some concerns about some of those case studies and some of those things that people are dealing with. I also would ask if there's any way to look at what we're doing as far as the violations and citations that are going on within the community, and if there is a way to put a moratorium on some of these issues until we get this stuff worked out, because it will continue to come up. It's come up in the past. It will probably continue to come up in the future. I think that's something that we need to look at very seriously until we can get something figured out. We know that there have been situations where people have been denied their business license and cannot operate in the community or in the town because of said violations. So that is something going forward that I think that we need to look at as well. Some of the questions that Mr. Simmons had in relation to the right-of-way and easement, I think that in one of our previous discussions, we had come to a compromise of even 25 feet. I think that language probably went away and is probably off into some other gray area. But like Mr. Simmons, I have some questions about that too, but I do think that we need to kind of look toward our staff and our professionals and our experts and hear what they have to say about their concerns about why it has to be that way. That being said, I think that each and every case study that comes by, each and every application that comes in is unique. While some of them have similarities, they will have certain little idiosyncrasies that may be different than something that is in that same category. I've said from day one that we need to be creative and continue to think out of the box. We know we can't put every case study in every category into the same box. So while it may be stated in the LMO one way or another, I encourage our staff to be open-minded and energetic in finding creative ways to look at solutions and not just problems or challenges for people, which I'm not saying that you haven't done that. I'm not being critical, but I think you have to continue to be creative so that people don't get frustrated, because I can tell you what I hear personally from my own study, which is not formal, but people do call me, and those of us in the community, we do talk to people. We see each other in churches and in the community and different events in better times when it was not so COVID. But people do talk to us, and especially in the positions that we're in on this task force, they come to us and ask, hey, what can I do about this? So I do appreciate the case studies that you brought forward, and keeping we don't need to know names. Most of us know who people are. But we do need to look at those situations very closely, very carefully, and be very careful not to say, okay, this just doesn't fit, there's no way you can do it, and the door is slammed shut. So we want to be flexible enough to look at creative ways to find solutions. Again, I will sound like a broken record, but I want to encourage this task force to stay engaged and not get frustrated. We have identified a lot of these items and a lot of the work. We had the work plan. We've had certain pieces and parts identified and approved by town council to move forward. I don't want to see us keep going backwards and having things sent back down to the task force. However, at the same time, I think it is important to keep this task force aware of developments and changes in communication. Transparency and trust are words that I've used often in the past. And as offensive as that may sound, I will continue to say that because I think it's important for a lot of reasons. As I said earlier, it's not just because of criticism from this task force, but to help this town and this staff move forward, we need to be in a position to be advocates and to give people in the community some answers when they come to us, whether they live in native island areas or not, whether they're part of a native island family or not. We should be abreast of what's happening with our town and give them some intelligent answers. The heartburn that I remember is when those little signs went out in the community about the changes to the LMO. And I got several calls, I think many of us did, and everybody wanted to know what in the world is going on. I know that as a part of some of our recommendations, we also have a piece in there that says we're going to continue to do education for our community. So there again, it's important to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it and how that process works, and people can participate in a positive way. So with that being said, I appreciate you bringing the case studies forward. I personally know that there are many, many, many more out there, and there's probably some other, again, situations that exist that are similar to the ones that you brought forward. I would encourage you, Dr. DeBose, and your staff to look at these case studies and test them to see how they apply. And if there are questions that you have for us, as Mr. Simmons said earlier, we would love to just be asked the question sometimes. What do you think? And how does this work, or will this work? And why it will work or why it will not. I think it will help this process so that by the time it gets to the Public Planning Committee and Town Council, that they will have an easier job to just almost rubber stamp all of the hard work and heavy lifting that has been done up to that point. I do see that I have some town council members on here, so I'm hoping they hear what we're saying, that we definitely understand that these are not always easy issues, but those of us who are in the positions that we are want to do as much as we can so that when it gets up to that level, that your job becomes clear. If it's not easy, at least it's clearer as to what can be done, and if there are reasons why it can't be done, we need to understand how to communicate that effectively to our public. Those are basically my comments. And I don't know if anyone else has any questions, or Sharice, if you need to respond to any of that, but I do want to move our agenda along. This has been good discussion. Thank you all for your input. And again, I value your participation at this level, and we'll continue to try to work together to move some things forward for the betterment of the total community. Okay, our next item is property taxes. And Sharice, you have another presentation for us or some information on property taxes?
Actually, heirs property is next. Yes, identification of heirs property.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. At the last meeting, that discussion came up, And so you will be sent a list of Gullah-owned properties as of 2020. And the purpose of this list is to help, we basically need your help in determining which properties are still heirs property so that we can update our records. I would like for you to please divvy the list among yourselves, work in pairs if necessary, and return the list to me as you finish. And when we meet again and have the list completed by the time we meet on April 5th. And so at that point, we'll have an accurate idea of the number of heirs property that does remain on Hilton Head.
Um, how large is your list?
That is a good question. Because we're down to less than 1,000 properties that are Native Island properties. So those you'll need to determine whether or not those remaining properties, if there's still heirs property on the list. Unfortunately, the list is not that large.
Yeah, I asked the question for a reason because there may be some properties on there that you can identify that we know that already are not heirs property. Wouldn't that minimize the list somewhat?
Yes, it would.
Okay, just an idea. Okay, I'm sorry, are you finished with your presentation?
That's all I have to say on that one. We can move forward to property taxes if there are no comments.
Well, I was going to go through the roll. Ms. McVitie, you have any questions on that particular item?
No,
No, ma'am?
thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Malik?
No questions.
Miss Martha Davis?
I have none.
Mr. Palmer Simmons?
Levon, I guess my only thought is to echo basically what you said. I mean, because not all properties in the historic neighborhood would fall under heirs property criteria. Some of the properties are clear and fall into trust and a few other items that would make them not under heirs. But if the issue is heirs property, no doubt to eliminate those who don't fall into the category would make the task a lot simpler. So it is definitely still an issue within our community for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Again, I don't see Ms. White on the call.
Yeah, looks like.
Therese, my question is related to the program that I understand was initiated with the Heritage Library to work with families in identifying some sort of relationship as it relates to heirs property. Can you speak to what that program is and how it would help us on this particular issue?
This is actually a genealogy clinic that's in the process of being set up. And before you can clear title, you have to have your genealogy. And what the Heritage Library is doing is putting together a program where that can be done for you. So by the time you meet with the Center for Heirs Property, if you qualify or if you have your personal attorney, you'll already have your genealogy completed, and that would eliminate that step in having you to take on that task and expense for yourself. And as that becomes more available, I will make that information available to you.
And who's working with the Heritage Library to develop that program?
This is between the town and the Heritage Library, and we also have a citizen who is involved. And again, I'm happy to give you those details as they become clearer. It's still in the works.
Okay, thank you. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, if there are no other, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'd like to ask, genealogy study can anyone answer whether if that's a new tool to clear properties because, as I best understand it, I don't know that a genealogy uh, determination has always been one of the tools. So that's something that's in our new age of well, ancestry is that something new because, I mean, it just sounds like another step in some expenses to clear your title.
No, sir, this is not a new process. You cannot get the property cleared without knowing everybody that's on your family tree. You don't want to try to proceed forward with clearing a title and you're not knowing who is connected to that property. And so what the Heritage Library is trying to do is trying to eliminate that expense that you would normally incur by having a program where it is done for you. But no, this is not a new step. You have to have a genealogy done. Center for Heirs Property can't proceed without that genealogy done, or your lawyer, they would just charge you to do a genealogy because you have to have all of your family members identified.
Okay. I, I mean, it just sounds like something that I personally have cleared properties and don't recall geology um, test or that process. And I think back when I was involved with such, it was a matter of identifying those who you actually knew, and then a matter of advertising for a certain period of time. If that's no longer the process, that you have to do go through the genealogy process, then maybe that's what it is. But I ask and say that because I don't recall that step. That's why I asked if it was something new on clearing a quote unquote heirs property.
No, sir, it's not a new step.
Okay. I think Teresa is trying
So,
to say something.
okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons. Teresa White, are you on and available? Do you have any questions or comments?
I'm here. Can you
Yes,
hear
ma'am.
me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. We are down to
It
talking
seems
about identifying heirs property.
identifying heirs property.
That's where
Uh,
we are on the agenda.
I thought we identified all the heirs property about 3 years ago. The very first year we started, we identified all the heirs property.
Um, I know we have been working in that area for quite some time now. I think that's why, again, it's important to have us engaged in some of these programs and developments.
I do know we
Well,
have that your help from the list of Native Islanders who still own their property on Hilton Head. If there is a list of heirs property, I can certainly try to locate that list, but I am pretty sure that since 3 years ago, the list is probably updated by now, that properties have been cleared since then. So again, I appreciate any help that you can give me in terms of identifying which of those properties that are Native Island properties are still heirs property, as discussed in the last meeting that we had.
I think we
I
just
think that
identified,
very few families have actually been successful in clearing their title to their property in the last 3 years. But um, it, since we already did a complete list of all the families that own property, all the black families, the Gullah families on Hilton Head that own property, and which ones were heirs property the very first year, it shouldn't be difficult to update it.
Teresa, I'm not sure you were on earlier, but Dr. DeBose did say she had a list that she wanted us to look at, and we can what our heirs property did. I think the work that we did was to identify native island properties. More specifically, we're looking now to see which one of those, as Dr. DeBose stated, certainly things could have changed in the last 3 years where some properties have been cleared and even other properties might have fallen into the heirs property application. So we're looking to update that information to be more specific about which of those properties are our heirs property. That's where we are. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have another question or comment?
What is it possible that I could give an update on the property tax issue that was raised at the last meeting?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little. Did you all get a question?
She is asking about the property tax issue, which is the next agenda item. I have some things that I want to discuss. And so if, Ms. White, if you want to make comments during that comment section, then yes, certainly do that. It's the next agenda item.
Okay, well, you go ahead and say what you're going to say, then I'll report.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. The next item is property taxes. Sharice?
Yes. So property taxes were due on January 15th. However, this year, the deadline has extended to March 31st before the 3% penalty hits because they were late in mailing the bill this year. So while it was due on the 15th, people are not paying until the 31st because you can hold off paying until before that 3% penalty hits. So at this point, we'll run the list from Beaufort County. And so there are still people who are having issues paying their property tax. And you were sent a link from Penn Center, who is doing their delinquent tax program, and you were asked to share that. It's important to let you know that the deadline to apply to their program is due today. And the good news is that only one property from 2020 needs to be redeemed before the October deadline. That's all the update I have on that right now.
Okay, I'm going to go through the roll. Ms. McVitie?
I have no questions.
Mr. Malik?
No questions.
Ms. Martha Davis?
No questions.
Mr. Simmons?
No comments, no questions.
Okay, Ms. White?
Okay, I just wanted to report that of the properties that she mentioned, that she sent me the redemption worksheet for from the last meeting. We had already done 2 of those, and the other one is in the process of being done. Altogether, the Pan-African Family Empowerment and Land Preservation Network has spent $35,119.71 on 8 properties on Hilton Head for property taxes for 2019, 2020, and 2019 and 2020 redemptions. That the largest property redemption that we've ever done in the history of our organization, it has been done on Hilton Head Island. It was for $23,875.48 for a business on the north end called Rice Co. LLC. And We have done several heirs properties as well as properties with clear title. So if you would like me to send you a list of all the properties that we redeemed along with the amounts, I'll be delighted to do that.
Yes, I know I would like to have that information.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. White, and I certainly appreciate the work that's gone into your work that's gone into helping these the tax delinquent property owners to keep their property, to keep updated with their taxes. So your work is certainly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Ms. White,
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, do you have a property value of those lands that you were able to redeem?
No, but I could. I haven't done it just for Hilton. Had them in the process of doing it for the whole year because we had spent over $200,000, and we want to be able to tell how much each property. How much each property was. On one day in December, we spent about $50,000, and we saved over $3 million worth of property. But it wasn't all in Beaufort County. So we have done a lot in the last 6 months, but I will update my records to specifically pull out the ones for Hilton Head Island and send it to you before the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that it's good that Penn Center is coming out to try to do something to help with property taxes because they went out of business in 2015 and haven't done anything for a long time. But the level of help that they're going to be giving is going to get people's hopes up, and then they're not going to be able to redeem the whole property, to pay a whole tax bill the way that we do. So we might still end up getting calls for assistance from same people who went to Penn Center first. So since Penn Center says they want to help, I'm going to send people to Penn Center first, and then they can come back to us if they don't get enough money between what they have themselves, because all Penn Center wants to do is supplement. They don't want to pay a whole bill for you, which means that people who have huge tax bills, for instance, if they got a tax bill that's $5,000 and they don't have a penny, if they had to depend on Penn Center to redeem that property for them, they're going to lose it because Penn Center's not going to have enough money to do that. They only have 10,000 somebody working with at this very moment, but I'm sure that as a result of publicity they've gotten and the fact that the county Hilton Head itself is pushing for them to help in the community, they will get a lot more money. So I'm hoping that we won't have the same pattern again of the people with the biggest bills not getting any help because they look at the bill and say, we can't cover this. And then the person can't come up with the money from any place else and they lose it. And they concentrate on the $200 and $300 and $400 and $500 bills. So that you lose, that's why so much of the big property, the large properties and expensive properties are being lost. Nobody was helping those people, whereas we do everybody. So we have a tendency to celebrate the big wins more so than the small ones. So people might get the impression that we spend the majority of our money helping people with large properties. But we do the biggest, most expensive properties first because they cost us the most money in the long run because of the interest rate. For somebody who's got a $110,000 bid at 3%, that's $3,300. If it goes to 6%, that's $6,600. So we get that we will always do those big pieces first because to pick up the small ones won't cost us that much money. But if it gets to a certain point of, we won't be able to redeem them because it costs too much. So that's all beyond 3%. And that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. White. And again, we do appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm glad that you are a part of this task force. I think that you are a valuable resource to this task force and certainly can benefit the work that we're doing here in the town of Hilton Head. So I appreciate you sharing that information, and we will continue to support you in your efforts.
Oh, thank you. And one more thing, if I don't know, because I let you know that when we were discussing having meetings on Mondays at 9 o'clock in the morning, I will never be on time because I have another meeting I have to be at every Monday morning. So I'm going to always be 30 the minutes an hour late getting here if I come on Mondays at 9 o'clock. But I wanted to let you know that the team from Soledad O'Brien Productions is doing this Disrupt and Dismantle series on BET, and that Hilton Head Island, and along with the rest of the Gullah Geechee corridor, is going to be featured on this coming Sunday, March 7th at 9 o'clock on BET. And some of the issues that the task force has addressed, as well as the task force itself, will be discussed on national TV. So y'all should tune in to see that. It's going to be fascinating. Tyrone Scott and his issue with getting his business open at 15 Marshland Road is going to be discussed in detail. I was there the day they taped that, and it was a very powerful interview. It brought forth a lot of issues that's going to be covered, that could be addressed by the overlay district. But it seems to be going at snail's pace. But it'll be an interesting national discussion as a result of this show on Sunday. So I just want to let you know there's going to be a lot of publicity coming out on Hilton Head nationwide.
Okay, thank you, Ms. White.
You're welcome.
Ms. White, can you send that link out to us later, please?
Tell you what time to look at it, all that. Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is a revised 2021 meeting schedule. Did we not approve this last time? Or
Yes, it's been approved. The problem was that the first Monday, and they fell on holidays for July and September, the 4th of July or on Labor Day. So the date has been adjusted to the next day.
So we need to approve this revised.
You don't have to go through a vote of it. Just let it know that that date has been adjusted. The whole meeting schedule has been approved by you. That is the meeting schedule. But just to let you know that the actual day had to change for those two because those were holidays. So
Okay,
nothing.
I'm just looking at my script, and so we don't need to call for a vote on this item.
No. Oh, yes. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yes, you do. Just the motion to approve the revised meeting schedule for just July and for September. No big changes.
And everybody,
You need a motion?
Yes, I do.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McVitie. I have a motion for the revised meeting schedule. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. We have a motion, and if there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Ms. McVitie,
Yes.
Mr. Malik,
For the motion.
Martha Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes, for the motion.
Ms. White. Did we lose her? And I know she has a challenge with her schedule, but and I approve the meeting schedule, understanding that we all have challenges, and this is probably going to be the best time that most of us can make it. So we'll move forward with this revised meeting schedule. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, we find ourselves at the last item, which is that for adjournment. Again, I want to encourage this task force and our staff, and I thank the members of town council who have been listening in on this meeting. And we encourage again the work of the staff, and we have some folks on this task force who are very gifted in certain areas and have access to some very, very important resources. So I hope that we will encourage to reach out to those folks, and we look forward to working side by side with staff to make the job of town council more valuable and smoother in this work that we're doing. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move.
So moved.
Thank you, and thank you, and thank you all. God bless you. Stay safe. Have a great day.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you all.
adjourned.